Afternoon. So today I'm going to walk you through the basics of formulating a syllabus. The syllabus is traditionally viewed as a contract of sorts, and both an official and public document. It is also a permanent record in that every course taught in every SEM should always have a syllabus, but this should be periodically updated. Now, this document bears the topic coverage and the procedures essential to the delivery of the material. However, it can also be considered as a learning tool because it sets the tone for the course and imparts to the learners various things or competencies that they will be able to do after taking the subject. So it is a map of the course and logistics as well as an invitation for active student engagement. These are the essential elements of an effective and well-organized syllabus. Now, each university would have its own format and own way of sequencing the elements. Some would have a little bit more information than others, but these are the basic elements that are expected to be present in this document. So the first will be the basic course information. So this would include the department to which the course falls under, no? And the course title and the course number assigned to it, if any, the number of units or credits or the number of hours allotted to it per week. It should also indicate there whether this is a semestral subject or a yearly subject and what year it is taught. Then the meeting time, no? What is the schedule every week? For example, here Mondays at 8 to 11. When it is face-to-face, if there's a permanent room that is assigned to it in your building, then you can indicate it there. Or if it's an online class, if these are online classes, then the Zoom link or the Google Classroom link. Now, then you also have the basic instructor information. So the basic instructor information will refer to the course coordinator or the faculty assigned to teach the subject. So if there are several professors that are assigned to teach that particular subject, then um, this should be indicated here. Or more commonly, it's the chairman of the department or um, an assigned faculty. No? Now, that should include the title and rank and the office address and phone number, if that is the preferred mode of communication, or the email, the official email address of the professor, and the office hours. And if there's a teaching assistant or co-faculty, then this the names of these professors or assistants and their contact information may also be included here. So the next element will be the course description. No? So as indicated in the slide, the course description um, is what the course is all about. No? So all the topics or areas that fall under the subject um, are presented here. No? So it also marks the place of the course in the curriculum, no? If it provides a foundation for or a prerequisite or introduction to a future subject, or if it is an offshoot of earlier courses taken by the learner. Importantly, in the course description, the relevance of the course to the learner's future professional life should be emphasized. No? So future life as a medical practitioner or healthcare provider. Now, the course description may also contain will also contain a general description of the instructional strategies, no? um, or the teaching learning activities that are used, no? And the mode by which instruction is delivered, whether it's face-to-face or online synchronous or asynchronous or blended, no? Utilizing all three modes of delivery. Now, multiple instructional strategies to include strategies that encourage active student participation are encouraged because these are correlated with increased motivation for the learner. No? And this will help optimize student performance outcomes. Now, a carefully planned blended learning, which combines the various modes of delivery, will incorporate the advantages of each mode of delivery, again, to optimize student performance and learning. Now, the course description will also contain the assessment methods, no? And just like the teaching learning strategies, the assessment methods should also be aligned with the course objectives or the intended learning objectives, which we will um, uh, discuss in the next section. So the assessment methods should also be varied. No? Uh, and the various sources of student performance should be considered. And that is because multiple sources or areas of student performance assessment will be a more valid means of determining whether the learner has achieved the specific or the intended learning outcomes for the subject. Okay, so it's not simply the traditional pen and paper tests anymore, no? But we use a combination of traditional and the newer methods of assessment, no? With the use of rating scales and rubrics, for example, to assess how they perform in small group activities, small group discussions, collaborative work, etc. Okay. Now, a separate grading scheme, which is of particular importance, of course, to our student, the percentage distribution of the grades for the subject, is often allocated a separate section in the syllabus. No? And we'll go into that in a short while. The next will be the entry competencies, which are simply the prerequisite subjects that the learner should have accomplished before taking up the subject. Now, the next would be your course objectives or the intended learning outcomes or ILOs, no? So the ILOs are statements pertaining to specific competencies or performance capabilities that the learner is expected um, to achieve after going through the subject. No? So these are usually 3 to 5, but it can be more. No? And they should be aligned with all the teaching, learning activities, and assessment methods. So all the teaching, learning, or instructional strategies and the assessment method should be anchored to the intended learning objectives. So a good learning objective should have the following characteristics. No? So I'm sure most of you are familiar with this already. No? So they should be specific. So a particular learning objective should indicate what action or competency is to be achieved by the learner. It should be measurable, which means that the competency or capability must be observable to indicate whether the learner has met the objective satisfactorily or according to the preset standards. It should be achievable, no, or attainable. So it means that the objective must be something the learner has a good chance of acquiring given the level of training, the prerequisite knowledge, and other resources. An ILO should also be relevant. No? So the intended learning objective should be something that the learner will have good use for in future practice, and therefore something that is valued by him or her. No? And it should be time bound. So the statement indicates the time when the competency should be achieved. So often the statement of an ILO begins with something like this. Now, at the end of the course, the learner should be able to, and then you put in your competency statements. No? So these are a comparison of weak samples of ILOs with the SMART ILOs. So if you notice, the verbs understand and know are often difficult to determine. No? How much do you know or how much do you understand? So they're pretty non-specific. No? So it's difficult to measure them, and it's difficult to determine if the learner has achieved that competency of understanding or that competency of knowing. No? In contrast to more specific verbs like explain or analyze. So these are examples of verbs that you can use. These actually are the verbs used for stating learning objectives in the cognitive domain. No? So you notice they are arranged in a ladder. So as you go up the ladder, you go from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. No? So often in a degree program such as medicine and the allied health professions, we would often want um, um, higher order thinking skills, especially in the upper years. No? So for example, the verb compare or value or measure or select would be very high, verbs that reflect very high um, order thinking skills, no, of evaluation in comparison to define or repeat or record or lists, no, which basically would be at the knowledge level. So this will be deemed as lower order thinking skills. Okay, so some institutions will might want to indicate also the alignment of the intended learning outcomes or the course objectives with the program outcomes. So the program outcomes are the terminal competencies that the learner should have achieved at the end of the degree program. So these are pre-specified by the university or the college or espoused by the university or college, but comes from a higher institution, like for example, the Commission on Higher Education. No? So in this particular example, like in our university, we espouse the School of Medicine espoused the 10 program outcomes of the CHED for the degree of medicine. So you can show the alignment here. So their course objective should be reflective of the program outcomes. So you can put them in a this manner, no, in close parentheses, or you can tabulate. You can tabulate the particular ILO as against the and aligned with the particular program outcomes. No? Okay. So the next section will be the learning content. No? So for some institutions, this will just be a list of the topics of the subject in order, or in some institutions, it can be as detailed as this. No? So this will contain the week that the topic is assigned, what is the instructional strategy or strategies for that, how many hours per strategy, and what is the mode of assessment. In some institutions, this may be included in a separate document what you call the instructional strategy. So this might not be as detailed as this one. Huh? So it depends on the preference, again, of the school or the institution. Okay, so it's very important that the learning out of content should reflect a good sequencing of subjects, no? Because that will reflect well-organized and well-planned syllabus. So good sequencing will should make sense. No, it's not a random arrangement of topics based on the availability of the professor or the instructor. No? So there should be a certain logic of arranging the topics. For example, should start from basic concepts to more complex ones, no? Generalities to more specialized features, or simple or basic knowledge to um, more complicated. No? Uh, so a well-sequenced order of presentation of topics would also facilitate student learning. No? All right. Then this section will be the list of the main textbook or textbooks, the additional references, no? um, and the other resources. And this is one particular section of the syllabus that is often revised, no? Depending on whether there are new editions or new journals or new materials that are to be used for um, the upcoming semester or the upcoming school year. This is also reflective of the dynamic nature of the syllabus. No? So importantly, there should be regular updating, even in at least in the references. No? Okay. Then the grade distribution or the grading system will be a very, very important part of the syllabus. And this will be the percentage allocation for each area of student performance. No? So as indicated, there should be um, multiple areas of student performance, and this should be made clear from the start and to the learners. And the learner should be also given the opportunity to ask questions or clarifications and even to negotiate for certain aspects of the grading system. No? And then this is often the last section. So you indicate the writer, the syllabus, and the year or the semester that it was updated. No? So what is the take home? What is a good syllabus? No? So I found this particular um, statement in the internet. No? This comes from Danielle Miram, the director for Center for Excellence in Teaching in USC. And there are two fundamental criteria that describes what is a good syllabus. So number one, it should contain all the information that students need to have at the beginning of the course. And number two, it should include all the information that students need to have in writing or documented. So with that, thank you very much for giving me this chance to share with you, and congratulations to the organizers.